Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning for our latest Monday.com user group. My name is Martin MacNamara, and I'm going to be the main host for you today. I'm delighted to say I've got a couple of colleagues joining me today as well. So as long as myself, there will be Ralph and Kandy, who are both here on the call today. You might have met them before or spoken with them in the past. So I'm looking forward to getting their input today and them showing you some examples of what we can do in Monday as regards project management today. So just a few little bits and pieces of information before we kick things off. About 45 minutes altogether is what we're going to be running through this morning. We're going to show you some different examples of how we can manage projects within Monday, how we can manage automations to drive activity within Monday, and also, I've lost my screen. Apologies. Smooth as always. 1 second. I have this right by now, but not yet. Back to my screen again. Fingers crossed. Yes. Okay, good stuff. So yeah, about 45 minutes overall. We'll take you through some of the project management workspace that we have set up. We're going to show you how we can use automations and forms to drive activity. And then Kandy's going to take us through some elements of resource allocation and some new features that are involved there as well. Please, if you do have questions, type them in to the chat box or to the Q&A box, either or if you want to open your mic and ask a question, more than welcome. The idea is very much this is supposed to be interactive. I know myself, once I get talking, it's sometimes hard to stop, and I'm sure Kandy and Ralph will experience the same. But if you do have questions, really appreciate those if you do have them. We will be recording this as always, and we will send you the recording probably tomorrow by the time you get the recording. And it looks like I've got another technical issue with sharing my screen, so fingers crossed this is the last time that happens. Yeah, it's coming down. Here we go. I love Teams. And then finally, we will be sending a survey out then afterwards. Just again, appreciate your feedback on this. Is the content we're showing useful? Are there other areas you'd like to see? Really appreciate any info you've got in that regard. So look, I'm going to move on now. I'm going to share my screen again, a different screen this time, hopefully without any technical issues, and take you through some of those things. So let me just stop sharing for one moment, and I'll come back to the okay, and now I'm going to share my screen again. Cool. Okay. So welcome. As I said, today we're covering project management within Monday, and specifically we're talking about the new products there are within Monday, some of which we've covered in the past. So the core Monday product is the Work OS work management product. And then on top of that, there are various different levels of additional product we can put on top of it, depending upon the particular use case. So in previous ones, we've covered the sales and CRM product. We're going to cover the marketing product on future sessions. But today we're going to talk about the Monday projects product. That's not too hard to say. And show you some of the aspects of that and some of the functionality that can bring in terms of managing projects and portfolios of projects within Monday. I'm just going to switch over to another board here just to show you. So if we look at our workspace here, which is set up for project management at the moment, we've got a number of different boards, as you can see, and dashboards down the left-hand side. We're going to go into some of those in a little more detail. I guess what I want to start with is just if we take an example of any organization that has a multitude of different projects going on, be they large, small, long-term, short-term, strategic, whatever they might be. Most businesses, I think you'd agree, hopefully you've got this experience yourself, have got lots of different projects going on. So we want somewhere where we can manage those, where we can see the detail level of those projects. We can assign those people to tasks. We can bring some efficiency in terms of communication, in terms of notifications, in terms of collaboration. But also we want to be able to get an overview in terms of what's happening with those various different projects, either for our own perspective or potentially to share with management or with a board or something like that. So we're going to start here just with a portfolio overview of our project management workspace. And within here, I can get a quick snapshot in terms of my various different projects and what stage they're at. I can look at things like costs. budget across my different projects, see how they're related to whether it's strategic objectives, technical objectives, whatever type of things we have there, where we're spending our budget in terms of what's actually spent, what's allocated to it. And then we can look at things like resource management, which we're going to go into in more detail later on, just in terms of, which different project managers have most projects, how many different types of project we have for different types of programs. And then we'll be able to look at things like planned actual effort against those projects. So very much high level overview at the moment in terms of our portfolio of projects. And then that's a dashboard view. We can look then from a table perspective, we can see the various different projects we have, upcoming, active, completed. And again, we can see here how they're associated with different programs or different types of initiatives, whether it's strategic, development, technical, whatever else it might be within here. So this is still top level that we're looking at this point of view, which is showing us snapshot kind of overview of our projects. These are linked then to our lower level boards, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. And we can look at different views of these then. So I can see overall from a timeline perspective, I can look at my projects and see what they look like from a timeline perspective, give me an insight into that. I can look at them from a Kanban view. So again, I can see how my projects look like from that. So whatever way makes sense for you, we can display the information in here. This is not a great example, so I'll go back to another one. We can display the information in here and show it from an overall perspective. So bear in mind, this is the high level view. And then we can look at things like we can build another dashboard, for example, in terms of risk register. So if we've identified certain aspects of risk across our portfolio of projects, we can show that within here. So we can start looking at those. So again, dashboard view initially, so we get an idea of those. But then we can delve into more detail in terms of those risks coming back from our various different projects. Then we've got detail level projects as well, which we're going to go into in more detail. But I suppose before we get started on some of that, we want to look at how do we start with an actual request of a project, what kicks off a project, what sort of process does it go through to get there, and then how can we use some automations and use some of the power that's within Monday to drive some of those actions and bring some efficiency to that project. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Ralph, who's going to take you through that. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Ralph is going to share his screen, and he's going to take you through some of that now.
Cheers, Martin. Thanks. Morning, everyone. So really, the goal that we're looking to do here is to show you how automations can make life easier and how automations can help your workflow a little bit better. And I know that there was a question in the Q&A box that was basically asking how automations can create and assign tasks and creating dashboards. Fortunately, Monday make it really easy. There's a couple of different ways we can do with regards to requesting projects. So in this case, what we're going to do is use the work form, which is essentially like Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, but just much smoother, much easier to do. So what we have here is we've got a project request form. Literally anybody in the organization can fill out this form to make a project request. In this case, we've just called it Gamma. And the executive summary, this section should provide general information on the issues surrounding the business problem and the proposed project or initiative created to address it. All of this comes from the executive summary here and how it's going to link in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to literally request this. I've just highlighted this as a test because there's going to be a few different ones that are there. So your project request was submitted successfully. It's not easy to say. And there we go. Project Gamma has been created and Martin has already been assigned to the task. Now, how has Martin already been assigned to the task? This is where automations come in. As you can see, we have the automations tab here, and there are 7 different automations that are assigned to that. So when a new item is created, assign a creator as the initiator. In this case, Martin was the one that the system assigned that. And that's done behind the scenes in terms of how everything is created, formulas, and the processes that are set up. But there's several different, as I said, several different automations that have been set up with regards to this. So it really is up to you in terms of how you set up an automation and how you want it to look. At the end of the day, every automation will have a trigger, a condition, and an action. So what are they? In this case, the trigger is the event you choose, which sets out the automation in motion. The condition, that's a requirement that the trigger must meet in order for the automation to work. Finally, an action. That's an event that occurs as a result of the trigger and condition being met. So when adding automations, you always have the option to customize your own recipe, as they're called within Monday, or choose a preset automation recipe. And I'll show you how to do that now. In this case, we go into our automation center here, and we can pick from a multitude of different options in this case. So in this case, we're going to go with due dates because projects always have deadlines, as I'm sure we all know, and we're always under pressure to get things done. So when a date arrives, and if the status is set to something, do something. So we're going to use this template. So we're going to go when the date arrives at 10 a.m. Now this date, I just want to kind of highlight this. This date is as per your set. If you have different colleagues in different locations, that is going to be different for them because this is already set by you, the creator. So if your time difference that you want to have somebody set up in, say, New York, you need to bear in mind that that's going to be 4 or 5 hours behind you. So when the date, so the request date or the approval date, let's pick the approval date in this case, arrives. And if the status is, technology, love it. If the status is at a priority, we can flag it as high. And then we set the status to priority, do something, high, and we can create that automation. So we already have that automation set up and created. What you can do with this as well, if this is going to be something that you're doing on a regular basis or something that's going to be really kind of important for you, you can save it as a template. So you can incorporate this automation into a number of different processes if you want. Obviously, you've got the delete automation if it doesn't suit you or you need to edit it. That's all there. But just to highlight that that's there under the 3 dots, and we can turn that on or off depending upon our needs. Another thing that's kind of really important is how does this process work? So Martin has set up this thing. He's happy to kind of push it through to the next level. So do we want that to be under consideration or approved? Well, as Martin is the boss, I'm going to say that it's approved. And that's going to basically run that already. As you can see, it's gone from here. And we've moved that down into the approved projects here. So we can see then we can start activating different sets within that in terms of the priorities that we want to set to that. So we're going to put it as a medium, and it's going to be a strategic project for us. All these other elements, they're all formulas, and they can all be created and set behind the scenes in terms of how that's going. We want to know what's going on with this, and Martin's already communicated to us since we set that up. What does he need to do with this? We're going to reply to Martin, and we're going to say, can't spell his name. Martin's going to get that, and we can already see that I've looked at it, and Martin will see that come up on his notification screen shortly, and then he's going to come back and let us know what we want to do with that. Now, in this case, internally, as this communication is, this is all for Monday license holders. So if we want to say to Martin, actually, Martin, there's a file that's going to be attached to Project Gamma, we can add that file from our own desktop, pull in that information, and let him have a review of it. So it can already be there, and we can see what we want to do with it. Again, the activities log, that's good from an audit perspective, being able to see who's been doing what with the project, why they were doing that, in case there needs to be a review done of it. So that's really handy. I did notice that somebody, as I said, in the Q&A box, did ask about dashboards. We've already got a response back from Mark. Brilliant. And we can like that and let Martin know that that's already going to be going ahead, which is really good for us. So that's a clear, transparent communication, which is really, really important. Another thing to basically show is what can we do? No, that's not what I was doing. Sorry. Dashboards. Dashboards is a new feature that's come into Monday, and it can be a really helpful tool for everybody there. We can create it as a calendar, we can create it as a chart, we can create it workload, or we can create battery. So in this case, let's create a Gantt chart for that. And we can already see that we've got new projects that are signed to this. And there's many different projects that have got to be going on with this. We can scroll down on these things and we can see how it all kind of is assigned. If we want to really kind of get into Project Dynamo, let's click in. Let's have a little look at the information that's there. Let's try and be able to communicate and figure out exactly what we want, when and where with that. So that gives you an overview of the automations. It also gives you a feel for the project request form. This is the setup of it that I had set up for everyone. Finally, just the workload. In terms of who's doing what with the projects, we can see that I'm looking after 2 particular projects. Martin's just been assigned to the Gamma project, so he's going to have his hands full with that. And that's being allowed at a management level for everybody to be able to see what's going on with the various projects that are happening. So that's the automations, that's communications within that. I wanted to show with regards to dashboards, so that's good. So I'm going to hand it back to Martin, and we're going to move on from there.
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. Some interesting information there. I think the automations, I think, are always amazing in terms of the strength of them there. And thanks for demonstrating a couple of examples there. They're really, really powerful in terms of what they could do, but at the same time, they're quite easy to set up as well. I think the communications then are really important in terms of bringing that information, that communication in context to the project. So rather than me sending you an email or having a meeting or whatever it is about a particular aspect of it, we can communicate right in context with the project, with the task, with the item that we're assigned to. So that's really good to see. So thanks for that. So any questions on that, please, as I said, do interrupt us at any point or put them into the chat, and happy to delve into any specifics you might have around that. Kandy's going to show us now some more in-depth around resource allocation and how we can show and visualize that now as well. So over to you, Kandy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kandy, and I'm part of the customer success team here in Provident. And today I'm going to be talking or showing you how to use a workload widget in a dashboard. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Yeah, perfect. So there's a couple of things that I want to take in consideration when I'm going to create my workload dashboard, which is having my projects, right? So as you can see here, I have 3 different projects, and I'm going to go very quickly in this because I want to make sure that you always have the right information to populate it in a workload, right? So in here, I want to make sure that I have a people column. So I'm going to assign someone to that specific task, a specific activity or projects. And then I'm going to have my timeline, which is going to define how long the project is going to take, right? And then my third and important one is the planet.
Cool. Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Sal. You've been in the minute.
Hello? Is that a question? Sorry?
No, I think you're okay, Kandy. I think
Okay.
someone's just wondering. Yeah.
Okay, and then my third information that I want to track in my board or in my project board is the planet effort. Okay, this I call it planet effort. You can call it time allocated or anything that you want to name it. And here I want to track the hours that I want Martin or that specific person in the people column to invest in that task. Okay, so as I said, I need my people column, my timeline column, and the number column, which is the in hours, which is the planet effort. And then I'm going to go to my, I think we call it resource allocation. Again, you can call these different names. And this is my dashboard. I hope everybody knows how to add a dashboard, but in case you just go here and then add a dashboard in here. I already have it in here, so I'm just going to go straight to that. And as you can see here, some important things that you have to take in consideration is that you want to make sure that your 3 boards, so my 3 projects in here, are linked to my dashboard, okay? Because I want to take that information for each of those projects. So I can click in here and I can see that all my 3 projects are here, so all good. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to click in add widgets. So you just click in here and then you're going to go to the very end and then you're going to search workload and then you're going to add the widget in there. I have it here, so I'm just going to go straight to that. So you can see my workload widget in here. And then I'm going to go to my 3 docs, which is 3 docs in Mondays, usually the settings. So I'm going to go to my settings in here. And this is the key part that I think most of my clients get confused with. So that's why I wanted to go to the boards, project boards, to make sure that we're tracking the right information to populate it in my workload. So as I was mentioned, I have my timeline column. I have my resource type, which is my people column, and then my effort and capacity, which is my planet effort. Okay, planet effort can mean different things for you, but in my example, is the hours. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my time column. So I want to make sure, right, that my 3 projects are here. And then as well, because the workload is taking the information from your board, you can have multiple of timelines or multiple of dates referring to different information. So it's always good that you make sure that you're choosing the right one, right? So as you can see here, I have different alerts, but I want to track my start and end date. So I'm going to make sure that the 3 projects are tracking that. And I'm going to go to my resource type. So my resource type in that case is the people column, as I showed you in the board. And again, I want to make sure that it's taking the right information that I want to track. As you can see here, I have another people column, but I don't want that one. I want the owner of that specific task, okay? As you can see here on my left side, you can see all the people that is assigned to those projects because I choose the people column, right? But I want to show you something as well. If you click here, you see that you can choose from the drop down and you can choose, for example, boards. And then boards, I'm going to show you the different boards or the different projects that you are tracking there. Or you can track the groups, so the different stages that your project has to go through. But in this case, I'm going to track my people column, okay? So we're going to go to the last part, which is the effort and capacity, and this is the very important one. So how to measure the effort? So there is 2 different things. You can do it by counting items. So that basically is telling you how many tasks you are assigned to. You are assigned 2, 1, 2, or 5, or the effort. So the effort is the hours, okay? It's tracking hours. So that's what I'm doing in my board. So that's the one that I'm going to choose. And then you can see as well, if you choose count, it doesn't let you to choose anything. But if you choose effort, then it's asking you which column define the effort, right? So it took by default the duration, but I want to make sure that it's taking place the planet effort. So the effort and capacity is usually a formula or a number column, okay? So I'm going to make sure that it's the planet effort. So I choose it here. Okay, so I have my effort and capacity, and then I'm going to continue scrolling down because it hasn't ended here. And then I'm going to, how I want to divide the effort. So I have 2 options, which is a split or sum. A split is if there's 10 hours in that specific task, and I have 2 people assigned to that task, is 5 hours for Martin and 5 hours for Ralph. But in this case, I want the sum, which is if it's 10 hours, it's 10 hours for Martin and 10 hours for Ralph. And then I'm going to scroll down, and this is the new feature, which is how you want to represent the workload as. You can see it as a number. So if you look in here, it tells you 2.4 hours, but now you have the option to represent it in percentage, which is kind of cool. I kind of like it. So you can see here 30%, and you can see, wow, this is, overloading here. So I'm going to choose that one, and then I'm going to keep scrolling down. And the last part is I'm going to define the weekly capacity, right? So I have chosen 40. So my team work 40 days a week, 40 hours a week, which is 8 hours per day, okay? If this is different for you and your team and it's 37 or 20, then you choose, the right amount in here. So 40 is for everyone. But if you have special people in your team that work different hours, you can edit the capacity per person in here. So as you can see here, by default, I have click apply default, so 14 for everyone. But if I click in here, I can then decide that John only works 20 hours a day, 20 hours a week, okay? But in my team, nobody's special, so everybody's 40 hours. So I'm going to click there and done. And that's the main key information, the 3 top, to show the information in the word log. And then the other ones is just settings, other settings, which is if you have a specific team, like for example, marketing team or engineering team, then you split the hours in between those teams. This is a new feature as well. And then you make sure that all your boards are linked to that. as you keep adding new project board, you have to make sure that you add them in your workload dashboard, okay? And then the other one is to choose group, which is the groups that you have in your board. If you have a specific group that you don't want to track, you just unclick the group in here, and that's it. And that's it. So this is your workload. And I want to show you all the different settings that I choose. So if I hover on top of this, I can see that Martin has 2 different activities. And from the 8 hours, he has 2.4 hours on that day, okay? So this is the weekly capacity that we populated in there, which is 40 hours a week, okay? So you can see the workload as days, weeks, or months, okay? So I'm gonna show just dates. And I can click here today, so it brings me to the day of today. And then I start, tracking what the team is doing. I can actually see when they're overloaded, so I can see the Marty here have way more. So I can click in this activity and see what's happening, and it brings me to the name of the project. I can see the Marty is assigned to this, and all the timeline of that project, which is 1 day, and the hours that are allocated for him. So for me, this is Martin, it's too much for him. So I'm just gonna take this, clicking here, and then allocate it to someone different. So I'm gonna allocate Ralph for this task. But then 1 day is not enough. So I'm gonna change the duration, and I'm gonna say 10 days for that activity. And then as you can see here, it changed already, So Ralph have enough time to do the activity. So I just, with one clicking there, I can change the whole project's allocation time. And then as well, you can share this with other teams. You can subscribe people to this. You can schedule email notifications. So this workload is sent to the managers, every week or every month and different hours. And you can export it as well to PDF. And I think that's it. If anyone have any question, just let me know.
Great, thanks, Kandy. Really interesting to see that. I like the percentages of time instead of just the hours. I think that's quite interesting. Just explain, maybe for people who aren't aware, just in terms of the circle on the screen there, what exactly that represents.
Yeah, as you can see here, let me see if I can find another right one. So the dark blue means all the tasks that are being allocated, all the time that is being taken. So you can see 8 hours, they have 6.7, so they're almost reaching to the capacity. And the light blue is the capacity that they have, the still availability for more tasks. When it goes red, it's because they're overloaded. So it's really easy to spot when someone is red, so you can go and click and hovering there and see what's happening, and then start reallocating other people's, or maybe adding more time to that specific task.
Okay, great, thank you. Again, if anyone has any questions on that specifically, I know we quite often get inquiries about workload, so please, again, feel free to open up the mic and ask questions about that, or equally put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll address those for you. Okay, we do actually have a question, so we'll see if we can answer this for you. So I want to automate a process that will be repeated numerous times. I have included a start date in the item to be populated by project manager and timelines for each of the sub items, which I want to auto populate pin the start date. Okay. Yeah, I think what you're looking for there, Kate, I think it is who's asked that question. So what we're looking to do then, so you've got a process that repeated numerous times. So is it that in that case then, and again, Kate, it's easier if you want to just open a mic and ask. You've got, is it multiple projects then that are recurring each time?
Hi.
Hi, Kate, how are you?
Sorry. It's the same process. So they are, I guess, multiple projects, but it's the same actions that will be completed every time. So it's an onboarding process, essentially. So every time somebody's onboarded, we'll do it again. So I've created a template that can be duplicated.
Yes.
But what I'm not clear on is, because for sub items, I can't include a duration column. I can only include them for actual items. How I determine how long, like how the dates will auto populate. Yeah, I've tried that. I've tried more columns as well, and it just puts the timeline and it gives me an option of a timeline plus number as well, which I don't know what that is.
Okay, and the challenge then is that you've got different projects each time, or
No, the challenge is the dates. So I've put a start date at the top with the item,
yes,
and then whatever that start date is, all of the other sub items will trigger off that.
okay,
And they have different SLAs, so different durations for each task.
yes.
But I'm just wondering, do I just put a random date in there, and then every time the start date changes, it will automatically change the timelines?
And do you have a dependency then between the different tasks?
Yeah, all of the tasks have got dependencies against them.
Okay. So you have a template like I have here, and you're reusing that template then when you have a new project. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the intention.
Okay. So, and if you just put in the new start date, then the flow should, if you have the dependencies set up, then assume they're configured correctly, what's happening once you put in that start date for that project, then it should automatically fill in the each activity based on the template. Is that happening for you?
I've not got that far yet. It's actually
Okay.
trying to figure out the dates and how to input the dates and the duration and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah. So, sorry, can you go ahead?
sorry. So what you're missing is the end date. So you start with the start date, and then you use the sub items to actually just go through a range of days, and then you're missing the end date, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's when
So-
each of, because I know, for example, some subtasks will take 3 days, some will take 5 days, and all
Yeah.
of that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
can't put that on the timeline because it's a template, so I don't know what the specific dates are.
Right. So what you can do is when the sub item, you have a settings that you roll up that timeline into the parent item, and so you will have a timeline with with a start and end day, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I'll try that and see.
So
It's
Martin's
the
gonna
end
show
date I
you
need
there.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
if you go to
you need,
timeline, yeah.
so you need a you probably need a duration then for the task as well, wouldn't you? So therefore that would give you the, so
Yeah.
although you wouldn't know the dates then at the beginning, if you've got a duration, so if we put in a number column with a duration,
Oh, I see. Okay, that's what I'm missing then. I
yeah,
didn't know that you could do, because I kept typing in duration for the column,
yeah,
and it just kept coming up with timeline. Okay,
yeah.
that's
So
answered my
basically,
question.
yeah.
There's
So
a new, sorry.
no, go
There is a
ahead.
new feature that in timeline, if you go to the 3-dot settings, right? So you go to settings, then they connect with duration. So you already have a number with a duration, so you connect that to that, okay?
Okay,
So
yeah.
every time that you change the timeline, the duration is linked to that. So it will tell you automatically how many days.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense. And then there was just another follow-up question. Is it possible to automate between boards as well? So as you've already pointed out, there's potentially multiple onboarding projects that we're doing. So we could have a different board for each project, or we could just put them as different groups on the same board.
It will really depend how long is your process, and how many onboards you do at any given time.
Well, at the moment, we've got 12 waiting, but then there's another 30 in the pipeline.
30?
Yeah.
30?
Yeah.
Okay, so so it will depend how many items or you're gonna have in one determinate board, but you can have separate board per project of per onboarding. But if it gets bigger than 50, that will give you limitations how many in a dashboard setting, right? So a dashboard widget is only allow you to have 15 different boards.
Okay.
So if you go over 50 onboarding boards, that will have a limitation in the dashboard, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does make sense. Thank you very
So
much.
when it goes lower than more than 50, then we always recommend to use one board for to have all the onboardings in one board.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for your help.
No worries.
And thanks for asking the questions. Always good to get. And if there's any follow on, Kate, that you have around this, then happy to have a call with you directly to answer any of those questions if we can do.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions while we're here?
Martin, there is a question in the Q&A box.
Yeah.
Somebody has submitted saying they'd like to know more about formulas and if or how Monday can have Excel or Google Sheets-like abilities.
Okay, formulas, my favorite feature. So formulas are fantastically powerful, actually, in terms of what you can do with it. We had a session over in the Monday offices in London recently, actually, looking at some of the details you can do around formulas. So they're really, really powerful in terms of what you can do. It's not my particular area of expertise, but yes. So by adding
Martin, I was just going to jump in there and say,
yeah,
we're
perfect,
planning a mug session on formulas in the coming months. So, you know, we'll do a deep dive on that one at that stage probably. So I guess we're committed to it now that I've said it.
This is recorded, so we've got to do it now. But yeah, I think that they're really powerful in terms of what you can do. There's an awful lot of functionality you can bring from them. The automations, which are really powerful, are quite easy to set up. So anybody really can set up an automation because it's quite easy. Formulas are more complicated. My brain doesn't work that particular way, but we do have other people who've been able to figure that out. So we can absolutely delve into that in more detail. We will do that in a future session. Or if you've got some specific use case that you want us to have a look at, then please get in touch afterwards, and we're happy to go through that with you.
Yeah, and I suppose just in relation to the specific question there, like the formula language is pretty much, you know, very similar syntax to Excel, and you know, a lot of those functions you can use, but probably we need a dedicated session to get into the detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Also, with regards to Excel and Google Sheets, all of those can be imported to Monday from Excel and Google Sheets. So the interactivity that you can have with those things can also be imported into Mondays. And you can, as you can see on the screen there, importing the data from Excel to Monday, it is the easiest thing in the world. Monday have made it very, very straightforward for you to be able to bring in that information to Monday and to be able to incorporate that into your workflows is very, very straightforward.
Yeah, and I think then as a follow-on to that, obviously, if you do have, we know a lot of people have some quite complicated Excel sheets with formulas and all kinds of different stuff going on in the background. Absolutely, we can bring a lot of that into Monday, a lot of functionality into Monday. And I guess more important than that, we can bring more to it than that. So there's a lot of advantages that Monday gives over and above an Excel sheet or Google sheet. So in terms of, for example, the communication, in terms of the activity log, in terms of assigning people against tasks, that kind of stuff. So hopefully we can bring a lot more to it. So again, if you've got a specific use case you'd like us to have a look at or discuss with you, then more than happy to run through that on a dedicated call for you at a certain time.
Rory, there you are. Rory's asked a question. Let me just find it here. Can you automate a step where you tag a project as something it can allocate expected time required resource and adjust the expected delivery date?
Okay, so you mean when, in that case, where a project has a particular task and we say that's a particular task and therefore we expect that task to take a certain amount of time, is that?
Yeah, sorry, I just turned on my microphone there. So
Super,
we've been using Monday.com for the last 3 months, and we use it as a design resource for allocating designs to particular people, and we're at 260 designs in the last 2.5 months. And like, I'm trying to discover if people are, like, by looking at the red hotspots, I'd like to see if some people are overloaded. It'd be easier to visualize that, oh yeah, they have too many designs on. Okay, I can reallocate it, or I can leave it where it is and adjust the expected delivery date for it. Just kind of 2 steps in one go, if that makes sense.
So is the concern in terms of just reallocating the time on the project?
Yes.
or having, okay, so not necessarily, are you saying that you need, depending upon the type of task, it has a predetermined?
Yes. So we have a tiered design system. So a small design would be tier 1, and an extra large design would be tier 4.
Okay.
And we have deadlines. So a tier 1 would be a 24-hour or 1-day working day turnaround time, and a tier 4 would be a 5-day working day turnaround time.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of different cogs moving at one spot there. So like, I really like the resource tool and what you showed with it. I'm just wondering how I can apply it to what we're doing, if that makes sense.
So in your tier, then, so if a product has a particular tier, then is your expectation that that tier would have a particular length of time?
Yes.
Okay. So what you could do then, so for example, we could edit the label here and we could say, right, this is going to be, I'm going to call this tier 1. Okay. And then we can have another one, which is, tier 2. Okay. And then we could set up an automation that when, so when the status changes, then we can set a number or due date to be something based on that. So for example, let me just do a custom one here. So I can create a custom automation. So when status changes to something, then we're going to set a number, let's say, which is going to be our duration. Okay, so our status in this case is tier. We're going to say it's going to be tier 1, and then we're going to set our number duration to 3. Okay, just as an example, right? So the idea here is when we change the tier of an item to tier 1, then our duration of that particular item is going to change to, in this case, 3 days. Okay. So what that looks like then is activity 6 here is part of my design phase. Duration is currently set there to 7 days. I'm going to change that to a tier 1 activity, and fingers crossed, and the automation is going to kick in, and you can see that the duration now has changed to 3 days.
Perfect.
Is that the sort of thing you're looking for?
Yes, that's it. I'll be working on that on a day basis, so I presume you'd use a decimal, say, or you'd use, say, 0.5 for half a day.
Yeah, or you could change your duration to be hours, otherwise, if that makes it easier.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Great,
And
glad we can help.
your duration is linked to the timeline, so you only have to change the duration. You don't have to do anything in the timeline. It will automatically change as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
No
Martin,
problem, Roy.
I found a quick example of a formula if you wanted me to run through it real quick.
Yeah,
I won't
super.
go into big detail, but I'll just try share screen here now. Give me a second. You see that now?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so this is just an SLA type board for ticketing that I built a couple of weeks back. So we have priorities on each ticket, and we have an SLA in minutes. And you can see in this, when you change the priority, say at the moment this is a low priority and it's 1440 is the number of minutes, and we set it from low to high, you'll see the SLA time changes. So in the background here, we have some formula columns. So when you click in here, you can see we've kind of an if-else type. If you're familiar with if and else formula, you can see the logic around how that works. So where if the priority is high, set the number of hours to 9. Or else if it's medium, set it to 18, otherwise 24 hours. So that's a fairly simple formula. And then if we move along, there's probably some more complicated ones in here as well. So this is one here where we're trying to do some specific date formatting on a column. So we're using, if you're familiar with Excel or other formula rules, you've got a concatenating of text date formatting based on particular syntaxes. So in this case, we've month, day, and then we want the year. We want all 4 digits of the year. So when you're creating a formula, just going back a step, if you want to create a formula column, you just create new column and it's of type formula, and you'll get up the dialog box here, and then you've got some help on the particular functions you want to use. So in that example, if there you get an example as well of how to do it. So we can dig into this in a bit more detail on another session, but I just thought I'd show you something basic here, just since the question was asked.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. It's really useful. Again, we will do more detail on that. I suppose the thing to bear in mind with the formula columns as well is although we need to put the column into the board to build the formula in the first place. Once we've built it, then we can hide those columns away so they're not taking up space then on your board. So you're just getting the results from the formula as opposed to having all the columns taking up space on your board. So that's something that can do just to tidy things up as well.
Yeah, and you can also do very basic Excel type formulas here. So this one here it's literally just to multiply by 60. So calculating from errors to minutes. So, you know, all the kind of usual stuff. The bits that are maybe specific to Monday are the syntax. So if you want to take data from a particular column, you need to put the name of the column in curly brackets. So little things like that, you just kind of have a bit of practice to figure it out.
Yeah, so if anyone has any specific requirements around this or particular help they want on a particular column, then get in touch with us and happy to help with that as well. Great, we're actually slightly over our scheduled time at the moment, so thanks for all the questions, really appreciate it. If there are any further questions, either now or in the future, we're happy to address those. If anyone has something now, or equally if you want to make contact with myself or with Ralph or with Kandy or even John, we're happy to help in future and have a dedicated session for you, exploring whatever help you need. We've only touched the surface, I guess, a little bit in terms of what we can do with some of the project management product. There's an awful lot of depth to it that we haven't even managed to get into today. So it's just really a flavor of it. I hope it's been useful. We will send out, as I said, the questionnaire afterwards. Really appreciate your feedback on it. And again, if you've got future topics you'd like us to address, please let us know. We're happy to do that. Thanks very much again for your attendance today. We will send out the recording tomorrow. Please feel free to share it. We do this every month with different topics. So if you've got colleagues or other team members who'd like to join or have questions they'd like to bring, please come along, and look forward to speaking to you in the future.